right, everybody, we are back once again talking about the victimization of the African American race in this country, brought to you and presented by the NAACP, which stands for the National Association of the Advancements of Colored People, which you would think an organization with that connotation would actually advance colored people, but instead we continue to move backwards day by day by day by day by day, so on and so forth, because of who funds this organization, who founded it. And then once you kind of understand that, you will understand that this particular organization, along with organizations like the Black Panthers, BLM, the revolutionary movements from the past, so on and so forth, all have the same roots, all have the same funding if you follow the money, but nonetheless the same roots, which are communist, Marxist, Leninist roots, all of them. So I wouldn't be surprised that the current people who are representing this organization would be against policies that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis would put out, because don't forget that Florida has been a staple, not just economically, but when it comes to freedom for many people and many Americans, but also they have a pretty decent Black or African American population in that state. So what exactly are the policies that the NAACP would have a problem with, to the point where they would even suggest banning travel to Florida, saying that the safety of African Americans and African Americans in general are in danger by just existing in that state? That is the most ludicrous statement that I've heard in a while. But then again, every day is a new day, and tomorrow I'm probably going to hear another one.
That's the message from Florida chapters of the NAACP after the statewide group voted unanimously to recommend a travel advisory for the Sunshine State. The move was in response to recent policies targeting diversity,
equity and inclusion,
African American history, abortion, gender-affirming healthcare, and others. News4Jax reporter Joe McLean's here with the response from local NAACP leaders and with what the governor had to say. Joe?
Yeah, well, the NAACP obviously doesn't have any government authority. They can't institute a ban. But leaders tell me, with the unanimous vote to recommend that people don't travel here, particularly Black people, according to the advisory, the group hopes to show the DeSantis administration and other state leaders that their policies will have an economic and social impact.
Being the good little American citizens that we are, that use our brain and activate it in moments like this, when we hear a bunch of stupidity at its finest, is what exactly are these policies that they are saying specifically are the issue? We'll look at what Ron DeSantis has put in place.
As you know, in the state of Florida, our education standards not only don't prevent, but they require teaching Black history, all the important things. That's part of our core curriculum. This was a separate course on top of that for advanced placement credit. And the issue is, we have guidelines and standards in Florida. We want education, not indoctrination. If you fall on the side of indoctrination, we're going to decline. If it's education, then we will do this course. So when I heard it didn't meet the standards, I figured, yeah, they may be doing this here. It's way more than that. This course on Black history, what's one of the lessons about? Queer theory. Now, who would say that an important part of Black history is queer theory? That is somebody pushing an agenda on our kids. And so when you look to see they have stuff about intersectionality, abolishing prisons, that's a political agenda. And so that's the wrong side of the line for Florida standards. We believe in teaching kids facts and how to think, but we don't believe they should have an agenda imposed on them. When you try to use Black history to shoehorn in queer theory, you are clearly trying to use that for political purposes.
Now to a developing story. Florida's governor signing 4 controversial bills into law. The Individual Freedom Act, better known as Stop Woke, restricts how race-related issues are taught in school and at work. A new version of the big tech social media bill aims to prevent companies from kicking politicians off their platforms. Another law strips Disney's special district status. And the fourth redraws Florida's congressional districts. Now, that law is already facing a lawsuit that claims it's unconstitutional because it dilutes the political power of Blacks and Hispanics.
Well, the only thing I can take out of that was the fact that Disney had way too much power, so Ron DeSantis made it so that they didn't. and that queer theory has no right and no reason to be introduced into the educational system for our youth, and it definitely has no place in African American history, and so on and so forth with these policies that he had put in place that actually protect the people, and especially the African Americans there. So my thing is this, is what exactly in here does the NAACP not like and don't feel represent their best interest? What could it possibly be? In order to understand exactly why this would be a problem for the NAACP is to understand who's behind them and who funds them and how they actually were started, which is why that is important information, specifically because you would then understand why they would be behind policies that they are behind, and why they would support certain policies that they would support, and why they would go against certain policies that would be put in place.
Particularly with the founding of the NAACP. Now, here's a little known fact. Many people don't even realize that W.E.B. Du Bois did not start the NAACP. Arthur Spingarn, activist of the day, and another Jewish man. These men were deeply involved in spearheading the birthing of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. And Jewish people were alongside people of color to see that through.
Just like many organizations, the NAACP has different factions, spread throughout. And of course, we're talking about specifically Florida. What Ron DeSantis has done in not allowing that filth to be introduced into the education system is, I kind of equate that to the Weimar Republic, which was, if no one's really educated on the topic or subject, was before the 1930s in Germany.
It's just your typical, lie that people want to say, like it says in the beginning here, all right, that the Nazis were burning all private books or all type of books. That was not the case at all. The only books they were burning was the filth and rotten pornography books, the homosexual books, all those type of books like that. And I hope you understand that, because again, we get people like transgender, pervert, homo, whoever, ABX on our site that is part of this, movement here. Her books or his books or whatever its books would be burned. You see, people like that would not exist.
What the Weimar Republic was the modern day Sodom and Gomorrah at the time. And what America is the modern day Weimar Republic. So what happened was, Weimar Republic was filled with prostitution, pornography, literature full of queerness, transgenderism, homosexuality, you name it, that's what it was, and that's what was there, and that's what it consists of. So what happened was, in the 1930s, when who came in charge, they took all of that filth and put a complete stop to it. They burned all of the, if you want to call it literature, that was filled with all of that, degeneracy for the youth and all that stuff got completely eradicated. This kind of reminds me of what Ron DeSantis is doing there, is he's saying we are not allowing that stuff to be an indoctrination device for our children, for our youth here. So I would have to, and of course we would have to, and you would have to figure out why exactly anyone would be against that. And why would these certain people be against a policy like that? Because it's literally protecting children from degeneracy. It's unfortunate that Black people have no idea that they're being used and weaponized in this country through these revolutionary pro-Black activist movements, because they are being fed lies, constant lies, and they're not actually digging deeper. They're only looking at the surface of things, such as racism, such as rights and equality and all this stuff, but all that stems from somewhere. So of course we're dealing with the NAACP with all of this as well, because they're no different. Thank God we don't have to go ahead and do a deep dive, and we can just use Google to see some of the things that the NAACP supports, such things as abortion and gun control and transgenderism and the LGBTQ community. their values seem to accurately align with the people who actually started the NAACP, which just so happened to not be African Americans or colored people at all. So the only guess I would have would have to be the